found behind its new deployment lines. But the issue of how to deal with them is being complicated by the desire of the U.S. to advance its Gaza program. More in this report. A dispute over the fate of some 200 Hamas terrorists still in the area of the Gaza Strip controlled by the IDF is highlighting the challenges faced by Israel under the ceasefire agreement. The Hamas fighters are reportedly hiding in tunnels under Rafah in southern Gaza on the Israeli side of the so-called Yellow Line. According to reports in Israeli media, the Trump administration is pressuring Prime Minister Netanyahu to allow them to cross over the Yellow Line into territory still controlled by Hamas, seeing this as a needed step to advance into the next stages of the Gaza deal. The hardliners in Netanyahu's cabinet reacted strongly to the report, with Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich calling it utter madness, and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir saying all Hamas terrorists must be destroyed rather than be released under ridiculous conditions. The Prime Minister's office clarified in a statement that it would not allow the 200 safe passage unless they give up their weapons in line with the agreement's condition of disarming Hamas and demilitarizing the Gaza Strip. The IDF will not oppose a decision by the government to allow safe passage for Hamas territories, the Jerusalem Post reported, since there are political considerations involved in terms of Israel's relationship with the U.S., and this is the dilemma facing Israel, weighing security considerations against Washington's desire to push on with its big plans for Gaza. Israel's Channel 12 is reporting that the U.S. submitted a draft to the UN calling for the creation of an international force in Gaza with authority to oversee demilitarization and reconstruction. The report indicates that with the presence of a transnational body operating in Gaza, foreign troops would be deployed to the Strip. We have more on that from ITL TV's Devil Klein.
The report by Channel 12 indicates that an international foreign force made up of allied countries would be deployed to reconstruct, resettle, and demilitarize Gaza. Trump's plan reportedly requires cooperation between multiple nations and funding from the World Bank until the Palestinian Authority completes approved and much-needed reforms. An American official told Channel 12 that the administration wants the force to enter the enclave as soon as January and expects the efforts to continue for at least 2 years. Under the draft, the Board of Peace would be established as a temporary governance administration with international legal status to coordinate funding and redevelopment in Gaza. Humanitarian aid would resume under the Board of Peace oversight and in cooperation with the United Nations, the Red Cross, and Red Crescent, with strict measures to prevent diversion by armed groups. If approved, the resolution would mark the most significant international intervention in Gaza since the outbreak of the war, combining reconstruction, governance reform, and security enforcement under joint Arab and Western oversight.
And joining us now to discuss the latest developments regarding the situation with Gaza is retired IDF Colonel Miri Eisen. She's a senior fellow at the International Institute for Counterterrorism. Miri, thanks for joining us. First of all, let me just start by asking you about the situation of Hamas fighters who are still behind what we'd say are Israeli lines in Gaza and what to do with them. Again, this is one of those things you would think would have been planned out a little before the agreement was reached and Israel pulled back to the lines. And how is Israel going to handle the situation now?
So there are two different sides to this, Kalev. The one aspect is that underground subterranean arena that we keep talking about 2 years later, just like you and I have been talking about it probably for the last 20 years, is still exists. That means that they can go underground into areas that the IDF has deployed in that yellow line area. So that's one aspect that the IDF wants to continue to work against. The IDF has said we destroyed maybe 50% of the underground subterranean arena, but not more. Second aspect is, where are the bodies? And here it's called Hamas being a terror organization. Of course, they're going to say that all of the bodies are where Israel is because it gives them the chance to try to push back, to push the lines, to change the situation. What's important for them is for them to show that they're dominating. And on that one, I think that Israel has been quite clear on what to do. But we still need the bodies back. We still need to end it both with the 8 bodies that have not been returned and with a new force that's going to come in and hopefully put Hamas in a different place.
Let me ask you, Mary, though, there are those who say even if they would, these Hamas terrorists would lay down their arms, Israel should hold them until those bodies are returned. Others say they may have even been involved in the attacks on Israeli troops after the ceasefire, and they have to be punished for it.
What I'm always asking people is, what do you think a ceasefire is? This is not peace. This is not the end of the war. Hamas has not suddenly said, hi, we recognize Zionism or Jews. That they have not done, and they're not going to do that. They are a terror organization, and in that ideology, they're going to continue to try to push the lines. The question at the end is, do we want to be, it's an old term in Israel, is this about being right? I don't see myself right now persuading those Hamas terrorists, and what I want to do is I want to arrive at a place where I, Israel, define what's important to me, bring back those bodies, put Hamas in a place that I, Israel, can live with. This isn't about their rhetoric. This is about their capabilities. And that's a combo which is very challenging because after 2 years, it's not that we've destroyed all of their capabilities. But Kalev, they can't do on October 7th. They absolutely can continue to attack Israeli troops that are inside the Gaza Strip. And we're going to have to see how we find a whole new arena. And I'm all for international troops. I want somebody else to show us that they can do it better. They can't, but it's a way to be able to contend with this.
Well, let me ask you about this international troops. Finally, who is going to disarm Hamas? I mean, that's what this plan supposedly submitted to UN doesn't really lay out. Can this ISF really even carry out that task?
So I want to be very wordy for a moment. I want to talk about the words demobilize and disarm. And first and foremost, I want to demobilize them. I want them not to be the ones out on the streets telling everybody what to do. I want them not to be involved in any way in the day-to-day running of the Gaza Strip. I also don't want Israel to have to do so. That means bringing somebody else in. That is not yet disarming them, but that is demobilizing them. Can that force that comes in disarm them? Can we take it one step at a time? I don't want, as Israel itself, to be the one ruling directly there. I don't want Hamas to be ruling there. At the end, we're talking about a compromise that I can live with. I think that the state of Israel, the IDF, and again, it isn't a happily ever after. But with Hamas, that terror ideology, there is none. Let's demobilize them. Let's show the people on the street there that it's not Hamas that's ruling, that they're not out there with their weapons in that open way. And the next stage, we can talk about disarming.
All right, Colonel Miri Eisen, thank you so much for joining us on ILTV.
Thank you.
At ILTV, we're not just reporting the news, we're on a mission. Every story we tell stands for truth, for Zionism, and for Israel. When you subscribe, you're not just buying an app, you're becoming a partner in strengthening Israel's voice around the world. ILTV is factual, direct, and unapologetically pro-Israel, and we need you with us. Scan the QR code on your screen right now to subscribe and stand with Israel, because this isn't just news, it's a mission. As Israel rejoiced last month when the final living hostages were released from Gaza, the families of 8 slain captives are still waiting for closure. Among them, the parents of American-Israeli soldier Itai Chen, whose body remains in Gaza. ILTV's India Naftali reports.
On October 13th, Israel watched and rejoiced as the final living hostages returned home. But for 8 families, the wait goes on. Their loved ones were killed. Their bodies are still held in Gaza, leaving them unable to say goodbye. 19-year-old Staff Sergeant Itai Chen is one of them. He is an American citizen from Netanya. Itai was serving on the Gaza border when Hamas launched its October 7th attack. He was killed in battle alongside 2 other tank crew members, while his fellow soldier, Captain Daniel Perez, was returned and laid to rest last week. Itai's body remains in Gaza. He is the last American hostage in Gaza. His family, who have dual U.S. and Israeli citizenship, have said they will not sit Shiva, which is the traditional Jewish mourning period, until he is brought home. They've become leading advocates for the families of the fallen, pressing both Jerusalem and Washington to bring their son back home. The others still held include Lieutenant Hadar Golden, whose body has been in Hamas's hands since 2014, Master Sergeant Ron Gavili, a police officer killed defending Kibbutz Alumim, Manny Goddard, murdered alongside his wife in Kibbutz Be'eri, Joshua Loitu Molel, a Tanzanian intern killed at Kibbutz Nahal Oz, Dror Or, whose children were later freed alive, Sudthisak Rinthalak, a Thai farm worker killed in Be'eri, and Lior Rudaef, a volunteer medic slain while aiding his neighbors. This week, the family of Omer Nutra, another American-Israeli hostage, finally received their son's remains. His parents spoke at a news conference yesterday.
For 758 days, we lived between hope and heartbreak. Today, that long night ends with the knowledge that Omer is finally home. Our hearts are shattered, yet at last we can begin the process of bringing Omer to his final resting place in the land he loved and defended. Omer's journey from a New York upbringing to the battlefields of southern Israel stands as a testament to the courage, to the faith, and the shared destiny of our 2 nations. Omer's return marks the end of our family's long night, but it cannot be the end of our collective mission.
Hamas has returned 20 of the 28 bodies promised under the U.S. brokered ceasefire, but says it cannot reach the rest, which are claims that Israeli officials dispute. As Prime Minister Netanyahu has said, the war will not end until every one of the fallen hostages is brought home.
The Israeli Knesset is trying to advance a death penalty bill for terrorists who killed Israelis. MKs are hoping to advance the bill to a first reading in the plenum as early as Wednesday. But what's more, the bill supposedly has the backing of the Prime Minister. More in this report. The Knesset National Security Committee advanced the bill Monday to introduce the death penalty for terrorists after government hostage point man Gal Hirsch told the panel that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu supports the measure. Hebrew media is reporting that the bill could make it to the first reading as early as Wednesday. Hirsch, who previously opposed the bill, told Israeli media that his sudden shift in position is due to the return of the living hostages. He feared that Hamas would harm the living hostages in captivity should the bill pass. According to the Knesset News, the explanatory notes to the bill state that its purpose is to curtail terrorism and create a weighty deterrent. The bill was introduced by Otzma Yehudit lawmaker Limor Son HaMelech and has been championed by her party's leader, National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. Ben-Gvir warned 2 weeks ago that if the bill did not move forward to pass its first reading in the Knesset plenum within 3 weeks, his far-right party would no longer consider itself obligated to vote with the coalition. The far-right minister said he welcomed Netanyahu's support for the bill on Monday, but argued that neither the courts nor the security establishment should have discretion in the matter of sentencing terrorists to death. Ben-Gvir added, "Let every terrorist who goes to murder know that he can expect one penalty, the death penalty." Former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney has died at 84. Cheney began his political career in his native Wyoming as a Republican congressman, rising to become Secretary of Defense and then Vice President in the administration of George W. Bush. Cheney was a strong supporter of Israel and of the use of military force to protect U.S. interests. He is viewed as one of the key drivers behind the U.S. invasion of Iraq in the Second Gulf War. Cheney passed away from complications related to pneumonia. Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center, has just reached an incredible milestone. Of the 6 million Jews who perished in the Holocaust, Yad Vashem now has documentation and names of 5 million people. That's 80% of the total number. How did they do it? ILTV's Devil Klein breaks it down.
Yad Vashem has spent decades conducting research to identify every single person who was murdered in the Holocaust. Identities of Jews from across Europe, many of which the Nazi regime tried to erase, are being unearthed every year. Today, the Yad Vashem Central Database carries 5 million names, 80% of the lives taken during the Holocaust. These names carry different identifications. Some have photos, some have belongings, others exist only from the testimonies of survivors.
Most of those sent to in deportation to Transnistria and camps and ghettos and killing sites were not registered. Or if they were registered, many of those records were destroyed by the Nazis and their accomplices towards the end of the war in order not to leave traces.
Yad Vashem's incredible achievement was possible through cutting-edge technology like artificial intelligence, which unlocked new methods of studying testimonials at such fast rates that have never been done before. Now, researchers at Yad Vashem can analyze up to hundreds of millions of pages of testimony in one go. This is not the first time that AI was used for Holocaust memory. The Holocaust Educational Trust used AI and virtual reality headsets to tell the story of a Holocaust survivor. And now, AI is helping Yad Vashem document and remember the lives and names who would have otherwise been wiped from history.
New York City is voting today to choose its next mayor, with Democratic candidate Zohran Mamdani still favored to win despite his strong anti-Israel views. President Trump at the last minute has endorsed former Governor Andrew Cuomo as polls show the race tightening. Devil Klein has the story.
It's election day in New York as it chooses its next mayor. And the city with the largest single Jewish population in the world, numbering some 1.3 million, may be on the verge of putting in City Hall a politician with outspoken views against Israel. Mamdani, a Democratic assemblyman from the New York borough of Queens, is a leftist progressive who has supported the BDS movement against Israel and has said as mayor he would order the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu if he should set foot in New York, in line with the ICC ruling against the prime minister. Mamdani is still leading in the polls with close to 50% of the vote, ahead of former Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is running as an independent candidate. Cuomo has attacked Mamdani's views on Israel as a key issue in the race, saying they would only encourage more anti-Semitism against Jewish residents.
The assemblyman will not denounce Hamas. The assemblyman will not denounce Hassan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11. The assemblyman just said in his response, well, it depends on occupation. That is code, meaning that Israel does not have a right to exist as a Jewish state, which he has never acknowledged. That is from the river to the sea.
Some polls over the past week show the race tightening, with Cuomo pulling within percentage points of Mamdani. That spurred President Trump Monday to endorse Cuomo rather than Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa, the former head of the Guardian Angels vigilante group, who trails far behind in the polls. Trump wrote on his Truth Social, "A vote for Curtis Sliwa is a vote for Mamdani. Whether you personally like Cuomo or not, you really have no choice. You must vote for him and hope he does a fantastic job. He is capable of it. Mamdani is not." Trump also threatened to withhold federal funding from New York if Mamdani wins, describing him as, quote, a communist. Whether this threat sways the votes of enough New Yorkers to help deny Mamdani an expected victory remains to be seen.
At a time of viral misinformation and rising anti-Semitism, more than 150 Christian journalists and influencers converged on Jerusalem for the 7th Christian Media Summit aimed at seeing Israel firsthand, challenging false narratives and strengthening a vital alliance. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman and India Naftali were at the CMS Gala last night. Let's take a look.
Hosted by Israel's government press office with the Foreign Ministry and the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, the Christian Media Summit kicked off on November 2 and runs through November 6 in Jerusalem, with tours from the Western Negev to Judea and Samaria. A gala was held Monday night at the Museum of Tolerance, drawing more than 200 supporters. Organizers say the goal is simple: equip Christian media with on-the-ground facts and fortify friends who've stood with Israel through 2 hard years of war.
There are people from all over the world. I just met a man from Nigeria, a pastor from America, from Europe. It is incredible. There are over 200 people here, and they're all leaders that are speaking to millions around the world from here in Jerusalem.
Veteran participants say this year's turnout and timing matter. With so many stories told from afar, attendees stress the impact of witnessing recovery and resilience up close.
So it's very important that these Christian media are here to see firsthand how the nation is recovering and hear from Israelis what they've been through and what they think has been accomplished.
The program tackled big questions, such as truth versus propaganda online, Christian-Jewish partnership, and the status of Israel's biblical heartlands, while acknowledging a core criticism, that the summit can feel like preaching to the choir. But organizers counter that this is precisely the moment to strengthen that choir so it can sing louder, clearer, and farther.
We need the media to speak the truth. We need the church to know the truth and educate its masses. In Africa, 30% of the states are Christian majority states. They know how to read, they know the truth, they know the Bible.
Israel's Minister for Diaspora Affairs told the gathering that the struggle against jihadist extremism is global and that Israel cannot afford distance from allies who share Judeo-Christian values.
So, unfortunately, not everyone understands the importance of the connection with the different churches that supports the state of Israel in the U.S., in Africa, in South Korea, in Hungary. It doesn't. I think it's super important, and we must continue to make this relationship with the Christian community stronger and stronger.
Beyond panels and site visits, on Tuesday night, the summit will recognize leading voices with the Pillars of Jerusalem Award and spotlight collaborations fighting anti-Semitism and online disinformation. For many attendees so far, the takeaway has been both moral and practical. Tell what you saw, amplify Israeli voices, and push back on falsehoods with facts. Participants say they hope to leave Israel with both stories and resolve. In a noisy world, they aim to be, in the words of one speaker, salt of the earth, preserving truth and standing with Israel when it's needed most.
And in a powerful show of international solidarity, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered for aid to be dispatched to Jamaica, the Caribbean island country that suffered Hurricane Melissa. This is the most powerful storm ever to hit the island country directly, and the first major hurricane to do so since 1988. With the devastation and damage caused by the hurricane, the Prime Minister's office said Monday that Netanyahu had dispatched a convoy of humanitarian and medical aid to Jamaica. Melissa, one of the strongest storms on record to make landfall in the Caribbean, began to dissipate on Friday after sowing devastation across much of Jamaica, cutting off communities in Cuba, drenching Haiti, and leaving at least 50 dead. U.S. forecaster AccuWeather estimated the $48 billion to $52 billion in damage and economic loss across the Western Caribbean. Needless to say that Israel has its own issues to deal with here in the Holy Land, but it is still committed to international solidarity and cooperation, a beautiful sight to see. And let's take a look at our own weather forecast. As the IDF tries to maintain security in Gaza following the ceasefire deal, it's having to contend with Hamas terror cells still found behind its new deployment lines. But the issue of how to deal with them is being complicated by the desire of the U.S. to advance its Gaza program. More in this report. A dispute over the fate of some 200 Hamas terrorists still in the area of the Gaza Strip controlled by the IDF is highlighting the challenges faced by Israel under the ceasefire agreement. The Hamas fighters are reportedly hiding in tunnels under Rafah in southern Gaza on the Israeli side of the so-called Yellow Line. According to reports in Israeli media, the Trump administration is pressuring Prime Minister Netanyahu to allow them to cross over the Yellow Line into territory still controlled by Hamas, seeing this as a needed step to advance into the next stages of the Gaza deal. The hardliners in Netanyahu's cabinet reacted strongly to the report, with Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich calling it utter madness, and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir saying all Hamas terrorists must be destroyed rather than be released under ridiculous conditions. The Prime Minister's office clarified in a statement that it would not allow the 200 safe passage unless they give up their weapons in line with the agreement's condition of disarming Hamas and demilitarizing the Gaza Strip. The IDF will not oppose a decision by the government to allow safe passage for Hamas territories, the Jerusalem Post reported, since there are political considerations involved in terms of Israel's relationship with the U.S., and this is the dilemma facing Israel, weighing security considerations against Washington's desire to push on with its big plans for Gaza. Israel's Channel 12 is reporting that the U.S. submitted a draft to the UN calling for the creation of an international force in Gaza with authority to oversee demilitarization and reconstruction. The report indicates that with the presence of a transnational body operating in Gaza, foreign troops would be deployed to the Strip. We have more on that from ITL TV's Devil Klein.
The report by Channel 12 indicates that an international foreign force made up of allied countries would be deployed to reconstruct, resettle, and demilitarize Gaza. Trump's plan reportedly requires cooperation between multiple nations and funding from the World Bank until the Palestinian Authority completes approved and much-needed reforms. An American official told Channel 12 that the administration wants the force to enter the enclave as soon as January and expects the efforts to continue for at least 2 years. Under the draft, the board as a